40 minutes of on-track action. I'm delighted to welcome back James Rossiter and Katie Munnings. Guys, did someone forget to turn the oven off? It is hot. I mean, I'm not used to these kind of temperatures. James, are you?
No, it's very, very hot and humid here. It's going to be a huge challenge for the drivers.
It really is. I mean, it's going to be such a challenge for them to stay cool and calm, but it is a fantastic track. We weren't here last season. It's great to be back here again, having last race here in season 9. Katie, what are these drivers looking forward to the most?
It is. It's a very exciting track. I think it's one of the most challenging grips out there as well, because you have this layer of mud and slime where they have a lot of rainfall and then obviously a lot of debris in the road. So it's going to take a while to clear it. If it's wet, it's going to be very slippery. And I think off the racing line, especially going into attack mode, there's going to be some interesting moves, I think, where that grip isn't quite so high as when you've cleaned the line and where you're on the racing line.
Wow, cannot wait to see that all unfold tomorrow in the race. But let's turn our attention to this championship fight, because it really is heating up. After this weekend, only a doubleheader in Berlin, doubleheader in London to go. And there is one man still reigning at the top. A 68-point gap at the moment, James, with Oliver Rowland. It's quite amazing, his dominance.
It's still such a huge advantage, yet we saw him last time out in Shanghai struggling to bring home 1/5 place in 2 races. So yeah, it's not in the bag yet. It's still an opportunity for the others to pounce.
Yeah, Katie, do you think this is a sign that maybe he's cracking under the pressure? Or was it just racing incidents, put it to one side, and he's back stronger than ever this weekend?
Yeah, I think it was just a little bit off. You could just say that for his race. I mean, we call him off, but he's been on all season. There isn't a surface that he's not performed on both conditions, rain, wet, street circuit, wide circuit. So I think he knows what he's doing. I think, to be honest, his gap is quite big. It would take something special for someone to pull it out of the bag now. But I do think he has to get back on his A game this weekend to try and extend that and give himself a comfortable lead going into Berlin.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one driver who was very much on his A game last time out was Nick Cassidy, which is brilliant to see. He's had a torrid season with only 1 podium in Monaco up until last time out, and he brought home his first win of the season. A great moment for him and the team.
Yeah, what a performance. I mean, he was so dominant in the wet in that second race in Shanghai. Pole position, half a second a lap faster than everybody in the race, controlled it perfectly. It was Cassidy as we used to know him, you know, out there winning, leading from the front. Can he continue that for the rest of the season?
Well, that is the question that soon we will find out. But it was an amazing moment for him. He's obviously, well, hopefully got Phil Ingram back in the seat as his race engineer. Do you think that was a real difference, a point of difference for him?
I think so. I think, you know, everyone knows they have such a great relationship. I spoke to him actually earlier in the weekend, and he was saying that he chose a setup a few days before and he just WhatsApped it to the team of engineers and said, this is what I'm going with. There were some disagreements, I think, but he's got so much experience in Formula E that I think he really made that call for himself, and it's probably given him a confidence boost now going forwards. He knows what he has to do to set up that car so he can drive it well.
Yeah, talking of setup, we are going into, obviously, the first session of this weekend here in Free Practice 1. I mean, it's a great track. It's got all the ingredients, fast-flowing sectors, technical sectors. But what are the drivers going to be trying to achieve in this 40-minute session?
Well, the biggest thing is to get an understanding of circuit evolution. It's super dusty right now. The circuit's going to evolve massively. So the key in the beginning of the session is just to get a feel for it, not make any mistakes, be out there, continue pounding in the laps, learn a little bit about the race pace, and get ready to perform in the qualifying practice at the end of the session.
Yeah, well, also keep your eyes on Max Günther, because he's been on the podium. He's had a win, and he had 2 pole positions here 2 years ago. Let's find out what's going to go down in Free Practice 1 with our commentators, Tom Brooks.
Thank you very much indeed, Nikki. The green flag flies as Free Practice 1 gets underway in the sweltering heat here in Jakarta. Our first visit here in 2 years. And the last time we were here, we saw victories for Pascal Wehrlein in the first race of the weekend and Max Günther for Maserati on that occasion for the second race of the weekend. It's a cracking circuit though, this one, bespokely made for Formula E, 2.3 kilometres long. It is fast, frightening and frantic, and also very, very dusty offline as well. My name is Tom Brooks, alongside me Alan McNish and Saunders CB here to guide you through the action. Alan, great to be back in Jakarta, especially at such a pivotal point in the season.
Yeah, it is. It was a race circuit that produced an excellent show last time out when we were here, and pretty sure that it's going to this time as well, for one simple reason. We're getting down to that crunch point in the championship, and there's people that need to make up ground pretty quickly, and they're going to go for it.
Yeah, they certainly are. Saunders, looking forward to seeing what's going to happen here this weekend. If we look back to Shanghai a fortnight ago, obviously mixed conditions in terms of the weather and also in terms of the results. Nick Cassidy taking his first win of the season. Do you think that that's now a sign of his momentum that he can start to build on?
I absolutely do. I mean, I was just saying to you just moments ago that I think Cassidy could finish the championship top 3 now. I think that when he gets his momentum, we just see a beast unleash, and he just goes from strength to strength. He just needs to get that first bit done, which he's done now. And I think he could be strong here this weekend, because this race, Tom, it's a race of attrition. It's not just about, you know, all the challenges when it comes to the car and the battery and the temperatures. The driver as well. Racing in these conditions in this heat is not easy. Yeah, absolutely. If you were a chicken, you'd be laying hard-boiled eggs in this weather. It is absolutely roasting out there this weekend. Oliver Rowland and Norman Natter just making their way back into the pit lane at the moment. Some team radio here for De Vries.
Build, push, cool, push. Then we have 2 calls in a row where we can practice attack mode again. One final push, and then 2 coasts and a coaster box. So we'll take attack mode on the first lap, so the out lap, and we'll take an attack mode on the first of the double cool.
Yeah, I think there the build is actually building up, and then the push, you need to cool everything off because it is actually pretty tough on all the systems around here, and that's the sort of process that's going. So it's not as if they're going to be flat out all the time, every lap as they're building up. And you see the dust coming up on the back from Mitch Evans' car there, and that's on the line. Can you imagine off the line?
Race control speaking, I would like to do full course yellow test. We go full course yellow in 3, 2, 1, full course yellow.
That's the voice there of Marek Aniszewski, and the face actually as well for that matter. Full course yellow systems check in free practice 1. Normal sort of test that we do in this session, so essentially just making sure the drivers, the teams can hear what's happening over the course of the lap, making sure that all the race engineers and communication and so on are working well.
We full course yellow ending in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, green flag.
So a 40-minute session, and what is this, just after 4 p.m. local time here in Jakarta. And I'm wondering how much of this session is actually going to be relevant in terms of the lap times, because as you said quite rightly, Alan, there's a lot of dust on the circuit. It's going to be track cleaning, surely. Yeah, but Saunders, you know what it's like in this situation. It's just a case of driving around, and relevance, well, it's always relevant. If you're quick, but if you're not, then the relevance is you're not quick enough, but not necessarily what it's going to be like for tomorrow.
And it's always important to remember that these free practice sessions aren't just about getting good one-lap pace. It isn't just about getting a good time. There's programs they're running, there's energy management systems that they're practicing. You know, there's a lot that can be going into this session that might only be relevant when it comes to that group qualifying, or even when it comes to the race with energy management. So sometimes it's not always the best thing to do to take the result from everyone and think it means anything. And we saw that in Shanghai with Da Costa basically topping the timesheets in both practice sessions and then struggling in qualifying.
Yeah, a bit of a mixed bag for Jaguar last time that we were here, as we look at Nick Cassidy making his way through, the most recent winner in Formula E after victory in Shanghai a couple of weeks ago. But last time we were here for Jaguar, at that occasion it was Mitch Evans and Sam Bird who were behind the wheel, and we actually saw the 2 teammates colliding down at the first corner. They'll be hoping for not a repeat of that here this weekend, and be hoping that they can again build on that momentum.
That was absolute carnage that season. I mean, it happened twice, didn't it, that season?
Yeah.
You know, it was a real bad turn of events for Jaguar. But I expect to see a bit more from Jaguar this weekend, just knowing because of what Cassidy's been able to achieve in Shanghai, but also historically what Evans was able to achieve in Jakarta only a few seasons ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he took victory here, didn't he? With who was he battling with? Da Costa on that occasion. They were battling for, you know, a good number of laps. That was in the last sort of Gen 2 era back in season 8.
Yeah, but I think we've got to remember this was a dominant team, absolute dominant team only last year, and this year they've been struggling massively. So previous performance doesn't equal future performance. And Taylor Barnard's a very good example of that from my point of view. He's come into Formula E. Berlin, I think, was his first race last year where he was dropped in for that one-off race. And he's been one of the revelations without doubt of the season so far. I think he'll do very well here because he's a sort of attacking style of driver. And that's the sort of thing that will get the grip in this type of circuit.
Interesting to talk about Taylor Barnard as well, because we know that the Neon McLaren name is going to disappear from Formula E going into season 12. We understand the team are trying their best to continue on, but we also understand that Barnard is still under contract according to team principal Ian James as well. So there's a good question there of where does Barnard line up on the grid? Is it going to be in whatever guise the Neon McLaren team looks like, or did Nissan try and poach him and stick him alongside Roland maybe?
Alan, what I'd love to know is there a clause in the contract like this if the team changes name? Does it open up an exit? possibility?
It depends on the contract. So normally I would think I would have structured a contract that he's contracted to McLaren and they've got the right to do with him what they want. And that could be even put him in a sports car.
So, okay, but let's say in the case that he stays in Formula E, but the McLaren name doesn't, he could be a free agent potentially.
Yeah, he can loan him out to that new team, that new entity. It's it depends where the contract is with the actual McLaren organisation or the McLaren Formula E team. That is the key differentiation. If it's McLaren Formula E team and then they sell it on and the name above the door changes, then it's an asset that will go with the team. If it's with McLaren themselves, a young driver program, for example, then that's a different scenario.
Hypothetically, Tom, if he did become a free agent or have a contract up for grabs, he's got to be the hottest property on the grid, surely.
No doubt, yeah. I mean, look, you know, an incredible rookie season, and I say that in inverted commas because, as Alan said, you know, we saw a couple of appearances for Taylor last year in Monaco and Berlin, but, you know, full-time rookie season, and he's had, what, 5 podium finishes now, and has been the standout performer of 2025 without a shadow of a doubt.
Do you not think maybe like Roland being a pretty hot property as well,
yeah.
or Nick Cassidy or someone like that?
Well, again, more sort of rumours circulating around. I was reading on the race this weekend, going into it, that there was a possible approach from Porsche to Roland, or maybe even the other way around, we're hearing now as well. Not quite sure what the legs are on that situation. Doesn't look like it's going to come to anything in particular, and Roland is likely to stay put with Nissan, but be interesting to see you know, what's going to happen there.
The other side to think about when it comes to this whole driver market and the rumour mill that's very much churning away at the moment is that next season is going to be a very pivotal year for the season afterwards when we get into Gen 4. So it's really, really important who you have in your car next year for that build year.
It's also, you know, when you look at the length of driver contracts, it's another thing to factor in, because they're not always in line, not always, say, for example, a 2-year period, and they all line up so that you can easily switch in and out. You've got to try and understand what the terms are for each individual, if you want to call it, hot property driver. And there you saw Jack Crawford, for example. Andretti have been very good in the past of bringing in drivers that not necessarily have been on the radar of other teams in Formula E, who have generally looked inside Formula E for their driver switches, whereas Andretti have been pretty good at actually looking outside of that talent pool and dragging new ones in, again in a similar vein to McLaren did with Taylor Barnard.
Just looking at the track conditions and the lap times, I mean, it's dustier than the camel's hooves out there at the moment, isn't it? There is just, you know, a significant amount on the circuit, and lap times reflecting that as well. Just to give you an idea, the last time that we were here in Formula E in Free Practice 1, a couple of years ago, in the Gen 3 era, not the Gen 3 Evo cars, we were setting times around the 1:08-minute marker. We're sort of in the mid 1-minute 9s. I know there's 30 minutes to go of this session, but yeah, it just goes to show how much track evolution there is going to be to come over the remainder of, indeed, this session, but also the rest of the weekend. Well,
Evans is now the first one that's put in a purple first and middle sector. He's starting to lean on it a little bit, see what that says. It's a 1:09.4, and he goes to a 1:08.8, 0.6 of a second, quicker than his teammate Nick Cassidy at the moment. But that 1:08.8 is going to be, I would say, decimated before we get to the end of this session in 30 minutes.
In terms of the circuit as well, Alan, we've got the attack mode area down at turn 16, quite late on in the lap, 4-wheel drive here for the first time as well. I think it's going to make a big difference this weekend.
Yeah, it is, and it's also, the attack mode is actually very far offline, so your time loss to go there to run through attack mode is going to be bigger than it would at most of the other circuits. However, it is a slippery, dusty surface, so, you know, 4-wheel drive will definitely have a bit better effect there. The other factor is that attack mode will not be used as much as the general circuit. So the first people to take it in the race are going to actually be compromised. So it'll be, I think, a case of after you clean up the attack mode, because actually there can be quite a big delta between the first car and the last car through it in time loss as well. So all of these things are going to be monitored and checked through the course of the practice sessions, but especially as well when it comes to attack mode at the beginning of the race.
Yeah, we're not expecting this to be a particularly energy critical race. What are we at in terms of energy for this one? 30.5 kilowatt hours. it should be a relatively sort of traditional Formula E style race, I reckon, this one, Saunders.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we always like to hope to hear, but as we know in Formula E, nothing ever is almost as it says when it comes to the race, and all it takes is for one incident in the first few laps for everybody's energy targets to completely change, and then it goes from what we might say is closer to a flat-out race to just being a flat-out race, where energy management really doesn't come into it, which is great for the likes of the less competitive machinery. You know, those that are yet to score points so far this season, or people that are really struggling to get up to speed when it comes to Formula E, when it comes to the two rookies that aren't Taylor Barnard. So yeah, it's very, very interesting to see how a race can change so quickly when it comes to stoppages and things like that and energy management.
And a big emphasis on qualifying this weekend as well. You know, we have seen it in other race weekends where even if you're down in 16th, 17th in the grid, you don't have a particularly brilliant day at the office, you can cycle your way up through the field. Here, we're not expecting that to be the case.
But that's again where that energy management sensitivity comes in, with it being a flat-out race or not, because if it is all about driving efficiently, then there are certain drivers and certain cars that are able to do that better based on the package and the powertrain they have and their experience in the championship. Whereas if that isn't so much of a eventuality, then it does mean that those that are just talented drivers that maybe don't have the machinery to back them up have the chance to get better performances.
Lap time's now starting to improve and heading in towards the region we're expecting as we look at David Beckman fighting the Cupra Kiro down at the first corner. Just got a yellow flag come out down at turn 7 there very briefly as well.
Robin Frines is out at turn 7 with a yellow.
Yeah, it looks like he's come to a stop according to our driver tracker here in the commentary box. Hopefully we'll pick up what's happened. Yeah, so the car has come to a stop. It's obviously in a dangerous place and it'll either need to be recovered or they'll do a control up the lead. Oh, he's in the barrier, as a matter of fact. So Frines has come a cropper.
Oh dear.
That's gone beyond the limits, I would have said, of the grip. It looks like he's came in and locked up.
Yeah, ambition over adhesion quite possibly there for Robin Frines as we look at the steely face of Sylvain Filippi
everyone.
Watching on.
We have cars stopped at the turn 7. Everyone who will pass this turn, please increase your speed. You can accelerate more than 50 kilometers per hour.
It's good race management. Once you're past that turn 7, then you can actually go quicker than the minimum speed, the maximum speed, and get back to the pits quicker, which will mean they can clean up and get this red flag back to green flag circuit. It's a bit of an odd one actually, because locking up, but then
it's not a fast corner that,
nosing into the barrier. It'd be good to see a replay of it as well, but he skidded along the barrier. If you look at underneath where that flag was, there's a wall, and then on the wall there is like sticker bonding, and it's ripped it off there. So I think he's been in the wall, and that's what's accelerated him into the barrier.
But let's have a look then, see what happened here to Robin Frines. So we're coming in towards turn 7. Oh, he's out of shape before.
Yeah.
Very early.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's just not my fault.
There's a bump there. If you note, if they replay it again, it'd be fantastic in a slow-mo, because there's a small bump just at the start of the braking, and the car sort of jumped there a little bit, and then kind of didn't slow down after that, as he then went into the wall, and then after that he was cascading around the outside.
Yeah, not ideal start to the session there for Robin Frines. He now jumps out of the Envision, and that will be session over for the Dutchman, unfortunately. 25 minutes now left on the clock. So out jumps Robin Frines then after ending up in the barrier. It started very early on, that sort of, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd like to see an onboard really to get an understanding of what actually happened here. He's straight on the radio saying it's just not his fault, but it'd be good to see what he means by that.
Well,
I think we really got to the bottom of that there. Let's have a look at an onboard coming up in a few moments' time of Robin Frines. You can see, obviously, some suspension damage quite clearly.
well, that means he's out of the session. I was hoping there wasn't going to be, and they'll be pulling the car back and being able to get it back. But that's a loss, because you've only got FP2, and then you're straight into quali. And to lose 30 minutes of the session is not what Robin needed at the beginning of the weekend.
It's seasoned from bad to worse, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about a driver that's won multiple races in Formula E. Let's have another look at this.
There's the bump. The car's jumped over the bump, and he's wide and on the dust and turning. And I think he's came over the bump and the car's reacted, and then he's just been offline, personally, at the moment. That would be my first assessment, but very open to other opinion.
Yeah, you could see an armful of lot there, but just no steering at all. It was like a shopping trolley down at Tesco, wasn't it? It's just, you know, no way you could get the lock on.
Definitely going shopping with you, that's for sure. That's the case.
You'd have thought I'd have learned. I'd reload it now so I can Tokyo drift around the
problem
aisles.
is with that corner, and Saunders knows it, you're turning in all the time as you're starting to brake. So here we are on board, and I'll be quiet now and just watch. So we're starting to turn in. Actually,
he's a passenger for most of that.
I actually think there could be something with the right front suspension as he's gone over that bump.
So a possible component failure we're looking at, maybe. Let's have a look. Yeah, something's let go there, hasn't it? Because that's very odd.
There is a bump, and he is offline, but if we could see that on board again, that's the other side suspension.
Let's have a look at the wheel. Yeah, something's let go.
It looked like on that first onboard that his wheel just went limp.
Yeah.
His steering wheel went limp for a second. He lost complete control. Let's see here.
Yeah, he's got too much lock on for this. The right front suspension's failed.
So that's why he was looking down there. I mean, obviously it had an impact as we saw into the wall anyway. But, yeah, not good at all there. And the face of the team principal paints a picture.
And it's just been as he's come over the bump that it looks like that loading. It shouldn't be too much loading, but he's got brake pressure on, which then puts more load onto the front suspension. But that's normal load, without doubt. It's not like smacking it over a curve or something.
So potentially not a lot he could do there, but still the result is the same. You know, apart from the two rookies that haven't scored points, he's third last, let's say third bottom of the championship. This is a driver that we know can win Formula E races, so it's such a surprise to see him really struggling this season, because we know what he can do in different conditions, different circuit types. But yeah, a big struggle for Robin Frijns this season then in Vision.
Maybe this super slow-mo will help us paint the picture a bit better. So
looking at the right front. There it goes.
Yeah.
It's as soon as he's gone over that bump, it looks like the bottom wishbone has broken.
Well, penny for the thoughts of Robin Frijns. The body language, as you can see, is not particularly satisfactory for him, unfortunately. An early end to his session and a loss of track time.
Just for clarity, that's a common part for all of the cars as well. And so it's something that they'll be looking at quite importantly to understand why it broke, what the mileage of it, when was it on, was it in any damage beforehand or not.
Yeah, so Frijns now debriefing with the team and figuring out a plan for later. So still under red flag conditions then here in Jakarta, and waiting for news as to when the session is going to be resumed. But while we wait for that, let's head down to pit lane, catch up with Alexa, who's with Jaguar TCS Racing Team Principal James Barkley.
Thank you, Tom. I'm down here with James Barkley, and I've just had a look in your garage, and there's a familiar face still in there. Thillingham working with Nick Cassidy again this weekend. Can you explain why that decision's come about again?
Well, realistically, coming into this weekend, that was always the plan. So, we'll be probably changing things around. But, yeah, for now, it's been great having Phil in that role. But, yeah, listen, they had a great result together in Shanghai, and it made sense to kind of keep it this way for another race.
Well, I wanted to touch on that result as well. Things are so positive coming off the back of Shanghai. Nick finally kind of getting that monkey off his back. What's the atmosphere like in the team at the moment? Honestly, the atmosphere has actually been great for a while, to be really honest with you. As a group, we've kind of been really united in the fact that we had better results in us. We just needed to kind of have a clean weekend, sometimes in our control, sometimes out of our control. And Shanghai was a weekend where when things are in our control, we can execute a clean weekend. And that's what we did. You know, Nick was not only fast on Sunday, he was very fast on Saturday. If it wasn't for the incident, we was taking out a race, the first race, I think it would have been a very different day as well. So no, honestly, relief, I think, is also the other side of it. You know, when you feel a result is coming, but for one reason or another, it's taken away from you, it's a big relief when all the hard work and effort that's gone into it is paid off with a great result like that. And Mitch, a previous race winner here in Jakarta, what are your hopes for the weekend? This is Formula E, right? It's a reset every time you come to a track, especially with the new Gen 3 Evo, it's different. So our job is just to do the bits we can control as well as we can, and that hopefully will pay out in the end. But yeah, the team are absolutely trying incredibly hard. The drivers are doing what they can, and yeah, let's see where we are at the end of it. Let our results do the talking more than the talking. Thank you, James. Back to you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Alexa. Thank you to James Barkley there. So some interesting conversations going on.
Alexa bringing up a really good point there about the race engineer with Nick Cassidy. You know, that change happened in Shanghai and he won the race. Alan, how much of an impact does it take having that relationship?
Check rear left. Yeah, the brush and the wall.
That statement is one you're probably going to hear a little bit more often through the course of the weekend, just about little brushes with the wall. It's very important because, especially with a relationship with an engineer that's had a lot of success in the past, there's an element of confidence between the two. There's an element of unspoken understanding when the driver, you know, just a nod of the head or a hand action, what that actually translates into in terms of car characteristics, and also the management of the driver in stress situations. And that's where I think it's important. And you know, when it changes, it takes a little bit time to understand and build up the relationship again. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it just does not gel. It just does not work. And it's not a case of that they're a bad engineer or a bad driver. It's just that the two, like human beings, do not get on perfectly well together.
And I imagine with the likes of Nick Cassidy, that's even more relevant because he's so technically involved in the development of the car. And he's got a real technical mindset, so matching that with engineer, even more important, I imagine.
No, I think even more important than that is the fact that he's had a difficult season. He's been used to winning races and fighting right at the front of a championship, and this season's been exactly the opposite. So there is an element of that solid base coming back into the system. And so it's as much mental as it is anything else. It's not whether the engineer pulls a beautiful setup out of the, you know, out of his computer and puts it on the car. It's actually a whole dynamic, and it's the human dynamic, I think, that's as important as necessarily the technical dynamic.
Well, you can see what it meant for Nick Cassidy last time out in Shanghai, taking that victory. He was almost in tears going on to the podium. A lot of outpouring of emotion after the struggles that he's had over the course of season 11, and it was great to see him doing so well, also with his family there as well. Confirmation, by the way, the session will now restart at 24 minutes past the hour, so just over a minute or so, and then we'll get this session back underway. Currently, Mitch Evans, Nick Cassidy's teammate, that is quickest of the lot. Given the length of the red flag, there is a possibility that we may have a few minutes added on at the end of the session as well.
I know, like, we never like to say that you can take too much from history racing here, and also what FP1 means for the rest of the weekend. But if you look at the top two, it's two drivers that have won here in the past.
Yeah, well, I'll be keen to see how they're going to fare this weekend as well. I mean, Gunther, you know, he's always gone well here at this circuit. Evans likewise as well, even in season 8.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really judge anything. End of braking, front locking, T13, I would say, and also last corner. So, yeah, I would say there we can maybe do some SAT and even lat. Probably lat is quite powerful in these two corners.
So we're talking about SATs, lats. What are we talking about next? Tibs and fibs, Alan? I don't know.
Gym exercises, aren't they?
Tib and fibs, your right leg, isn't it? Your tibula and fibula. I honestly don't know because there are three-letter acronyms. Lat usually means lateral, so it's something to do with the, I would say, the brake migration on when it starts to turn a little bit. Admittedly, both of those are relatively straight braking. Turn 13's into the hairpin, which is a good overtaking opportunity. And then the last corner is a sort of 90-degree one. But it's a very, very complex system of how when you are pressing the brake and then releasing, coming into the corner, the dynamic of the car, but also how the brake then migrates as you're recuperating energy.
So, session now back underway as cars filter back out onto the circuit with just over 15 minutes left to go. Of course, we've lost Robin Frines from this one, courtesy of the crash which brought out the red flag. Let's go down to Alexa in pit lane, who's catching up with team principal Sylvain Filippi.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I'm down here with Sylvain. And first things first, Sylvain, can you just tell us, is Robin all right?
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine, but he was very surprised. It looks like a front right suspension failure. So as you can see, the car is not here yet. The boys have gone to check it out. But yeah, extremely unusual failure. So, you know, and we prepare the cars always the same way. So yeah, it's quite strange. We need to investigate and see what happened.
So what's the process from here then? Is it an investigation as to what went wrong and then repairing it, getting it ready, hopefully for FP2?
Yeah, hopefully we'll find out quite quickly what happened, and the why is the next one. But for sure, in the meantime, rebuild for FP2. Of course, it's very annoying to lose so much track time. But yeah, car will be rebuilt easily. Understanding the why will be the important thing.
And losing the track time, obviously not ideal. Does that place more emphasis on Seb's work now, or how does your mentality shift from here?
Yeah, for sure. FP1 is a lot of data gathering and, you know, validating all the sims and so on. So yeah, it's half the data, which is really problematic. But we'll do our best from here.
Thank you, Sylvain.
Yeah, a bit of an uphill struggle now then for Robin Freitz for the rest of this weekend after losing out on the track time. You can see the session has now been extended to 10:05 local time, so now 24 minutes left to go. So we're pretty much where we were prior to the red flag. So it means that all the drivers that are left in this session will get as much running as they should have done. And also means for the teams there, Saunders, as well, they haven't got to change the run plans around too much with the shortening of time.
Yeah, exactly. It means that it's almost, I mean, not effectively business as usual, but it's kind of closer to that. Obviously, everyone likes more running and more experience and program running on this circuit, but Formula E is definitely a championship where you have to deal with the cars that you're dealt because things change so quickly.
Let's talk drivers then and driver markets. Of course, it is getting into silly season, as some people would coin it now. A lot of rumours and whispers swirling around. We spoke earlier on about Porsche and Oliver Rowland. That was a conversation that was had, but it hasn't really seemed to go anywhere. If we look at the other side of the Porsche garage with Antonio Felix da Costa, is there a possibility he could be onto pastures new, do you think?
I mean, you have to ask the question, don't you? But I tell you what, Tom, in Shanghai, that coffee station was like its own rumour mill. Every driver that you think could be susceptible to leaving their team or having to find a new seat in Formula E was having coffee with every different team principal. There was a lot of business going on.
Yeah, more coffee per head than I imagined the plantations in Colombia, to be completely honest with you.
Where do you get these phraseologies and things from?
Christmas crackers, normally, to be honest. But yeah,
it's a niche Christmas crackers.
Yeah, they are. They're only sold in the Brooks household. But no, I'm keen to see what is going to happen. We know that like Mahindra, they're signed up for next year, so don't expect Mortara or De Vries to be off anywhere new. Speaking of De Vries, let's have a look at him going down in towards this right hand, having a big lock up there on the front right. So that'll be a nice flat spot that will rattle his fillings out. And just to bear in mind as well, they only get 3 sets of tyres over the course of a Formula E weekend as well, so not ideal in terms of the condition of those tyres now at all.
Just to kind of continue on your point of the driver market, Tom, is that without kind of going into the details of what everybody's contract is, you know, who's got locked in for a few seasons, whatever, which teams are changing, I think there's a third of the grid, if not more, that could potentially not be here next season. Or not be here in the current capacity that they are. And the main reason I think of that is, again, to bring back that point of the build year next year into Gen 4. Who you have in that car is crucial.
If we can do a third push in this run, then I think we go for it.
So Ticton ready to try and set a flyer then in this session. Currently the slowest of the drivers, hasn't really set a representative lap time. So who are the drivers that you'd be looking at then, Saunders, that should be under pressure?
I mean, Alan's probably a better shout from the team principal side, but you know, for me, what I would be looking at is who is able to pull magic out of the cars that maybe are slightly. Oh, that was a bit close.
Yeah, it was Buemi just getting very close to the back of Ticton.
Ticton's not leaving much on the table there, is he?
No. Yeah, I wonder whether the stewards might be looking at it. It's a bit of a blind corner going through turn 16 there, and Ticton just catching the Envision at the wrong time. Does move up the order, but yeah, lost a little bit of time. Carry on.
Yeah, so just because of the importance of this build year pre-Gen 4, you're really looking for people that can maximise cars with little data, little information, little running time. Because when you get to Gen 4, everybody's starting from scratch. You know, there's very little time to actually spend with the car before that season starts. So with that, I actually think another really interesting place to be looking at is the rookie test post-Berlin. Who they're going to be getting in the car, because we've seen that shift now between rookie-veteran argument. Does experience outweigh new talent or flexibility or adaptation? And I don't think it does anymore. Look at Taylor Barnard, look at Jake Dennis during the season. The rookies really do have a potential to do well in their first season. It's not the case for Maloney and Beckman this time round, but for Taylor Barnard, it most certainly is.
Yeah, but I think you've got to remember that you know, the Nissan powertrain in the back of the McLaren is, well, it's dominant in Oliver Rowland, and for Lola at Yamaha, then it's their first season with this whole structure. So, you know, we're not necessarily 100% apples with apples, but I do agree with you that rookies like Maloney, race winner in F2, and Taylor Barnard, and I know that Dunn, for example, another F2 race winner, is a very good potential for this. However, I would caveat it a little bit with team principal's hat on. What am I looking for? Am I looking for a driver to win a championship, or am I looking for a driver to elevate us and develop us for the championship? And the two can be slightly different.
And also as well, if you're looking at drivers, as you quite rightly said, we're changing over to Gen 4 at the end of season 12. So do you get a driver in, you know, you've got to find someone that surely is in for one season rather than a 2-year contract cycle, because I would imagine they're going to want contracts to align so that teams can have the best possible options going into Gen 4.
Yeah, but you would do that for try and get the driver to run through the last year of this to go into it, so he can do all of the testing in the middle of the season next year and not be conflicted with other racing programs.
Yeah.
So if you get them under contract now for the following year, then they run through, and then you take one of those variables out of the equation. The main variable then is a completely new technology in car.
The other thing to consider is we really don't know that much about the Gen 4 yet. What we have heard is going to be unbelievable, and the speeds and everything, but let's say it drives very differently. Let's say there's a different question of downforce. Let's say the tyres are different, whatever. Drivers that can adapt to that, or maybe have better experience with a new tyre partner or with more downforce, that could be the difference between energy management, let's say, as a priority as it is now.
Yeah, no, it'll be very interesting to see how it's going to happen. Just in terms of the rookie test lineup post-Berlin that Saunders was mentioning a few moments ago, Cooper Kiro just announced this week that Bianca Bustamante will be lining up for that team. Also, Jamie Chadwick will be in for Jaguar. Abby pulling in once again at Nissan. Ella Lloyd in with McLaren as well. So quite a few new different names coming through. Now, it'll be keen to see how they're going to fare as we head into Berlin. Of course, 5 races left to go in the 2025 season, and plenty of opportunity for things to change in terms of the drivers and the teams championship for the regular drivers here, as we look at Sebastian Buemi on a full attack mode lap here. Buemi just making his way down into the hairpin of turn 13, riding on board with the Swiss driver, the winner from Monaco, let's not forget as well, just getting a bit unsightly and a bit sideways as he runs it a bit deep into there. And it's not the first time we've seen drivers coming a cropper in this session, and Buemi lucky to keep that car out of the barrier, but it's compromised his push lap here, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I think very good recovery.
Yeah, nicely done.
Yeah,
nicely done there for Sebastian Buemi, but let's have another look at it. He was wide going into the corner, so this is out of turn 13. We're riding on board with him, heading down in towards turn 16. This is where the attack mode will be activated.
He's just wide. His eyes were caught a little bit by the McLaren that was up ahead of him and didn't quite get the braking and turning right, so he's wide. And look at the dust coming off the back. It was like spray if the circuit had been wet, and pulled it back. So no harm, no foul actually in the end, but now Norman Nato, the same, came in a bit heavy and deep into turn 13, the hairpin, and then you saw a nice little slide there.
Well, this is the thing with being in attack mode. You're in four-wheel drive, but obviously you're arriving to the corner that bit faster. So, you know, you hit the brake pedal maybe a couple of meters earlier. Clearly, there's not the same grip in the braking zones here.
No, it definitely doesn't look that way. The other thing to consider as well is the dust is one thing, but you don't really see it on these shots, but we're so close to the beach. So sand as well is part of that dust too.
A bit like Zandvoort.
Yep.
In terms of the dust being blown up and over. Nico Müller quickest first and second sector coming through. However, that's just been beaten by Edo Mortara in the first sector. I think Müller will probably go quickest there, and just takes his teammate Jake Dennis into second.
One of the Jaguars up the top of the picture there, I think that might have been Nick Cassidy. Looked like he was in a bit of bother going through the final corner. No yellow flags out, so he's been okay. Maybe just ran a bit deep into there, but he was certainly slow and wide going through that last turn.
This has got to be a welcome sight for Roger Griffith and Andretti, just because of the balance struggles they've had this season when it comes to on that pace. And they've really, really struggled to put stuff together when in practices and qualifying. So this is welcome. And we've talked a lot about who won here in the past, but Jake Dennis had back-to-back podiums in our last visit in Jakarta.
Yeah, he knows how to drive this circuit pretty well, does Jake Dennis, and you know that was on the way to his title-winning season in season 9. He was pedalling very well that year. His consistency was really shone through.
Edo Mortara puts it quickest there for Mahindra. 106.3, times tumbling down very quickly with 15 minutes to go. It was 108.5 that we talked about as only 15 minutes ago, at the red flag that was quickest at the time. Now they're starting to lean on it.
Yeah, about 2 seconds quicker than we were the last time we visited here in season 9. Just on the point of Andretti as well, good to see Nico Müller up there as well. It's been a challenging season for him, let's not forget, and you know, he was brought into that team to, you know, assist with Jake Dennis and also, you know, kind of put his own stamp on things really as well, and it hasn't worked out for him so far this year.
No, and it's always a bit of a surprise because I just remember when he joined the championship, I think it was Dragon Penske he was racing for, and he was pulling performances out of that car that he really didn't deserve to have. You know, I think, yeah, so it is always a surprise to see, especially what he did when it came to App's Cooper as well previously. He was kind of out driving the car, I think, but Andretti not being so lucky so far this season.
Well, this is the point.
Sorry, Nico was our reserve driver at Audi, and he was a superstar. He was super quick, very, very good in the car, very technically, positively led, and I think in the right situation he'd be very strong in this championship.
No doubt about it. As we look at Verne going up to third quick, let's have a look at Norman Nato with a driver's eye view. More with him in the middle part of the lap. Deep down at turn 13, not the first driver that we've seen coming a cropper there, and I'm sure not the last this weekend as well. See a big snap of oversteer on braking and on turning, and running quite a few meters wide. Let's have a look at Sebastian Buemi. This was a few minutes ago.
Man, I need more rear support end of brake. And I need to make sure I stay on the racing line. There, I just braked a bit late, went off, that's it.
Yeah, so Buemi and his half spin.
Yeah, he's actually keeping the steering wheel quite straight because he can't get the support in the rear. What he means there is when I turn the steering wheel to go into the corner on the brakes, I need the rear to hold with me. At the moment, the rear's moving around like a pendulum behind him, and that's why he was very straight on the steering wheel. Hence the reason that he then ran wide and then onto the dust.
Well, just under 30 minutes left to go in this session. The two Lola Yamaha Apps cars, both up inside the top 10 at the moment. Lucas de Grassi and Zane Maloney. Alexa is catching up with Mark Preston.
Mark, it's been a really exciting thing to watch your progress and the team's progress throughout the season. We've got 5 races to go now. Where's the mentality at? What's the hope for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's going really well. We've achieved more than we thought in some ways by getting a podium in Miami, so that's great. We ticked that off. Progress is going well. Obviously, we've got a lot to catch up with. Getting into the duels is our main target, I think, at the moment. That's kind of, I suppose, a proxy for speed. We've done that now a couple of times. Obviously, we'd like to qualify higher all the time, as always, and race better. But it's going pretty well, and obviously want to get more points in the last races and keep progressing.
And on a slightly different note, I'm seeing a lot of dust being kicked up on track out there. What are the track conditions? What are you hearing?
Yeah, it's still pretty dusty. The guys are still saying it hasn't really cleaned up a lot yet, so they're going quicker all the time. So maybe it'll be a bit like the wet, and the last person out will be, the fastest.
That could make a bit of an interesting quali tomorrow if it carries on till then.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll clean the track overnight, so we'll see how it goes.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Righto.
Well, get the brooms out and give it a sweep, I reckon, at this rate. It does look like the track conditions are steadily improving as we look at Buemi on an attack mode lap. You can see him 350 kilowatts, 4-wheel drive then here as well as he makes his way through this first sector. Tight and twisty it is, and then the circuit begins to open up as we head in towards sector 2. It's a brilliant track, this one, and bespoke made for Formula E as well.
I just saw the car bouncing as Buemi's thrown it into the corner. He's struggling for balance here, but there are some big bumps there as well as he was coming into the braking area halfway around the lap. Now through the 3 kinks down into the heavy braking area, we saw Norman Nato losing the rear on entry. Nothing for Buemi, he gets it spotted and exit nice and clean. Now he's got another tight corner, a quick kink, and then into the final right-hander onto the start-finish straight.
Yeah, this is down at turn 16 where the attack mode will be activated in the race. Pit lane there just on the left-hand side of your picture. Through the final corner, right up against the wall on the outside. Where is this going to elevate Buemi in terms of the times? It'll be a personal best for him, and it's up inside the top 5, so it's not bad at all. On the other side of the garage, though, repair works ongoing here for Robin Freitz.
Yeah, top wishbone there, we saw the accident. Something has failed on that right-hand side, but it's the top wishbone that's damaged, but it looks like the failure's been on the bottom wishbone as it connected to the chassis.
Let's have a look at Casti down into 13, and he gets it nice and sideways.
He's got a funny sort of, well, I don't know, it's not funny, but it's just a slightly odd driving style that sometimes he puts his hand underneath the bottom of the wheel when he's turning into tight corners that you need to put a lot of lock on. I never did that as a driver, but then again, I was back in the day when you had big round steering wheels.
Maybe something he picked up in the Super Formula days.
Yeah, it could be. It's also maybe related to the steering weight as well. You get a quicker leverage on it by pushing it from below as opposed to pulling it with your right hand down, pushing it from your left hand up.
Just saw Phil Ingram inside the Jaguar garage. We spoke about it earlier on about the relationship with Phil Ingram that he's had. Of course, the brilliant performances he put in last season. Changed race engineers this year, and you know, for one reason or another, it hasn't worked out in terms of the on-track results. How important is that synergy between driver and race engineer, Saunders?
We touched upon it earlier, and I think Alan made really good points that it is more than just performance. It's about driver management, and there is like a whole psychology behind bouncing back from bad results and being in the perfect place for the next race. And I think, as Alan quite rightly said, that's where they make their money. You know, how can you keep a driver motivated and confident going into every race if they've just had the worst weekend of their life just 7 days before.
Yeah, looking here then at Cassidy making his way back into the pit lane. The Jaguars currently just in 12th and 17th at the moment, as we see an improvement there for Max Günther going up to 11th position in the DS Penske. We understand that Nick Cassidy is likely to be a Stellantis powered bound car for next year. We're not sure what colour it's going to be yet, but you were speaking to Stoffel Van Dorn. That sounds like he wouldn't mind Nick as a teammate next year.
Yeah, hypothetically, he seemed very happy with that idea, and I don't blame him. You know, I think of all the drivers on the grid going into Gen 4 the season after next, that is a phenomenal hire if that's happened, because he's so technically minded. He's so into the development of a car. Nick Cassidy pretty much is the perfect person to have on board in a build year going into Gen 4.
Just look at the speed and the reactions and the bouncing around of the steering wheel from Nico Müller there as he's now threading it through. It's just it's full reaction. It's not where you're driving the steering wheel through it. You're reacting to the bumps, to the dustiness, to everything in and around it.
Yeah, you can see him dancing around the steering wheel. It's like he's boxing with an octopus. There's so many angles going on here.
Never boxed with an octopus, but he's definitely boxing with something, that's for sure. But he's also going to be going quickest as well. He's quickest in Sector 1, Sector 2. And now he comes in towards the final corner, and I think Nico Müller will pop it to the top of the timesheets.
Yeah, it's looking pretty handy here for Nico Müller. Then through the final corner comes the German driver across the timing line. What does it look like for him? Well, it loses a bit of time in that final sector. 6/100ths of a second away from Edo Mortara. Tickton, though, looking like he's on a pretty handy lap as he begins it in the Cupra Kiro. This car has been quick. We've seen it over the course of the season. Podium for Dan Tickton for the first time ever in Tokyo earlier on this year, and let's not forget the pace he had in Monaco prior to that as well. He's been really able to extract a lot out of that Cupra Kiro.
It was 3/10 that Nico Müller lost in that final sector. He was quicker in Sector 1 and Sector 2 than Mortara, but dropped it and more in the final one. As now we've got Dan coming through here. Still, as he was kicking up some dust as he went a bit wide. Not ideal line into the final corner, but still going to elevate him up the charts.
So Dan Tickton comes across the timing line, third quickest then for him. So the two Swiss drivers of Mortara and Müller lead the way. Now Tickton in the Cupra Kiro up into third. Günther, though, on a bit of a flyer here in the last 6 minutes of this session. Down into turn 16, gets it nicely rotated through the apex. You can see him just constantly adjusting the steering angle going through there. Out of the final corner we go here for Max Günther, right up against the wall. Where's he going to elevate him? It's to the top of the pile by 0.3 of a second. So brilliant couple of sectors to end the lap there for Max Günther.
Yeah, he just pulled the whole lap together, actually. That's what Nico Müller should have done. He was in position for that lap time, and Günther was able to do it. Jake Dennis wide and close to the barrier there. Got a bit of too much opposite lock on at the end of the lap.
Yeah, not the first time that we've seen that, except for a barrier awaiting Dennis on the outside. No surprise that he's aborted the lap. Oliver Rowland, championship leader by 68 points. Currently down in 17th quickest at the moment, so he'll be wanting to improve in the latter minutes of this session as well. He's on a personal best lap time, but it's not one that's particularly lighting up the timing screens. He's a couple of tenths of a second shy in the second sector. I have to say, the field spread quite big here, actually. We're normally used to seeing drivers, all 20 of them, sometimes within a second of one another, but if you can see on the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen, we've got a second separating 6 drivers here.
Yeah, and it's not like there's a huge discrepancy with how many people have done their 350 lap either. It seems across the board, everybody bar looks like Maloney and Hughes have done one. So yeah, it is interesting, as you say, Tom, to see such a big gap to what we're used to.
Evans 19.1 in the first sector, quickest by far. Middle sector is his best, but it's not overall. Is he going to be able to get it as he floors it into the final corner?
Track constantly evolving and improving as we see Evans out of the final turn. Across at the timing line he goes. Where does it put him? Up to 5th fastest. So nicely done there for him. Van Dorn Team Radio.
Okay. There's obviously a big rise of tire temperature. Tires are boiling now, especially race, but they're not looking too bad. Like physically, they're not wearing or anything, neither front or rear.
The problem is that you're putting a lot of load through the tyre. There's quite a lot of long corners. Corners where you're braking and turning in, corners where you're accelerating but still steering. That puts temperature into the rears, and it's not, you know, at the end there's not a lot of grip on the circuit. It's still sliding around, so it's not a wear issue. It's just more of a pure thermal problem. That and then when that tyre gets soft, the rubber gets soft because it gets too hot, then it feels a bit like a sponge.
There's a good possibility the last driver to cross the line at the end of this session will be the quickest, as Ticton there just on a cool-down lap after the one that saw him now currently put him into 8th fastest. Still quite a few drivers improving over the course of this session as well. Oliver Rowland now beginning a push lap. Let's see if we can stick with the Briton down in towards that first corner. It's a long run down that start-finish straight, and you can lunge up the inside, but there's a big moment for Rowland and a spin round and into the barrier for Oliver Rowland with 3 minutes to go in free practice 1. The yellow flag is out at turn 2, and that is not the scene that Tommaso Volpe wanted to be greeted with. The championship leader hits the barrier.
Yeah, I don't think there's any damage, and if there is, it's to the right-hand rear vertical end plate area, so it's superficial more than suspension or gearbox or anything else, but that ruined a little bit of the lap, shall we say.
We have seen drivers just looking on the edge on these push laps in particular, Saunders. The balance of the car doesn't look happy over this particularly green and dusty circuit.
Not at all, and also when you get the evolution that we're seeing as well, it's so crucial that they try and make the most of that and get themselves into a position that might be more representative for the rest of the run-in we're going to see this weekend. I think that's what we're seeing. It's changed a lot in just the last few minutes, hasn't it?
Yeah, look at Eric Hughes, again, amplifying that point I was just making down at turn 13, runs it wide. This is the apex by a country mile, and that's going to cost him his lap time here.
He's sawing at the wheel there. He's like huge inputs to try and find where the grip is. He's not on the edge of the grip, he's under and over and under and over it all the way through. It's not, that car's not giving him the feedback he needs at the moment.
Yeah, across the timeline goes Hughes. He does manage to improve.
To 20th.
Yeah, I know exactly. It's not much of a time to shout about there.
Trying to find that grip, trying to hug that racing line is all well and good in free practice and qualifying. But when it comes to the race, trying to make overtakes in those sensitive parts of the circuit when you're basically going offline into dust could be very sketchy.
Do you think that therefore the attack mode is going to have a lot more emphasis because of the four-wheel drive?
I think any time you have a low grip circuit or low grip areas of the circuit, that all-wheel drive makes such a difference.
It's such a fast run down in towards that first corner.
Such a wide first corner as well, so it allows and drags you into an attacking the braking area and attacking into the apex, which is great for us. Easy to make a mistake, and we will see that in the race, I am very sure.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So Norman Nato on an improvement here on his attack lap in the other Nissan as well. Needs a strong performance at the end of this season, does Norman Nato. He's been unlucky, was denied a win in Miami, and he's had quite a fair bit of misfortune on the other side of the Nissan garage, but also when he's had fortune, he's not been able to extract the performances like we've seen from Rowland. Look at this, down in towards turn 16, just traffic beginning to build up. This could be a particular problem in the group stages of qualifying as well. Drivers trying to find clear air out on the circuit, and look at it.
Oh my word.
It's like downtown Jakarta here, just trying to pick and choose your right lane, isn't it?
Yeah, but that was Sebastian Buemi there. I think there's got to be a little bit of a view of that, because that was not ideal.
So we're now in the final stages of the session. That's why we're seeing drivers really attacking the circuit, trying to find those minute improvements at the end of FP1 here. Gunther in an attack mode lap here as well as Beckman, Verne, likewise. Well, who's the first driver to take the checkered flag? It's going to be Stoffel Van Dorn. He comes over the line 16th, doesn't make an improvement in the Maserati. One of the Lola Yamaha apps was right up close against the wall with the sap of oversteer at the final corner. Maloney's just crossed the line and goes up to 18th quickest.
a lot of improved sectors, but no purple sectors so far in this final lap that they're all doing. And this is represented now with Günther and Shanghai finding that grip.
Yeah, but Pascal Wehrlein's done the quickest of the middle sector. He's the only one that looks to be really going to lift himself up. He's currently in 17th place, Wehrlein, as he comes through towards the final corner in a minute. He's got the quick kink left.
Yeah, he's got clear track in front of him here as well, hasn't he? Which is nice because it was in,
he's wide. Missed. Yeah, he's missed the apex there, so he lost a bit of time out to the final corner.
Yeah, it might still be okay. He might be able to improve. I think he's backed off actually, hasn't he? Yeah, this final fly, yeah, in the final sector. So Wehrlein stays 18th quickest at the end of the session. Don't think anyone's going to depose Max Günther because, as you can see, quite a lot of the drivers have crossed the line now. And indeed, Da Costa actually improving up to second quickest at the end of that one as well. So, interesting end to that session. Interesting session altogether, really. A couple of drivers in the barrier, including championship leader Oliver Rowland right at the end of FP1. Robin Freins also in the wall, which brought out the red flag early on in the session. But the upshot is, it is Maximilian Günther who is fastest of the lot for DS Penske from Da Costa and Mortara at the end of FP1.